So Phil, I've known you now, I believe, a decade. And one thing I didn't know about you is that you may be one of the most often callers of 911 of anyone maybe I know. What's the deal with that? Is that true? Do you have any stories about this?
It's true. And I was trying to remember when this started, but this is true. My friends, family know this about me, unfortunately, so much so that I was even telling the story one night at a birthday party at a restaurant for a friend. And we all, as a group, drove back to our house. And on the drive back, of course, I saw something and I had to make a call 911. So we all got to the house and they were like, wow, there it was. Some of my favorite. I once called 911 on a mysterious car sitting in a cul-de-sac near our home, and turns out it was an unmarked police car that was sitting there. There had been a rash of thefts of televisions in our neighborhood, and he was sitting here trying to protect us. And here I am calling him in.
You called him in on himself.
Yeah, that's right. I called 911 once on a dog that it appeared was foaming at the mouth, and everybody freaked out, thought it was rabid, and I texted my neighbors to alert them, and of course one of the neighbors said, "Oh, that's our dog." So I had to cancel that call.
Now that one might have been because you're a cat person, huh?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I tried to approach him. He wasn't friendly, and I don't know, but yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Wait, any that actually worked where you said, I called and I did the entire community justice?
Yes. It was actually another police situation. I was actually here in Austin on Mopac, and I was driving, and there was kind of coming from behind me, a guy in a car comes up kind of beside me and blows by me, and it looks like an old Crown Vic, like an old police car.
Yeah.
Painted white, but he has red and blue lights going on inside of the car. There's no siren. The window is down. He's wearing like a ski mask that covers half his face.
That's sketch.
Going, and I'm like, something about this doesn't look right. And I call 911, and they're like, oh, it's probably a detective in their loaner vehicle at home. And I'm like, I don't know. And so they pursued him, and I think it was a stolen vehicle situation. And I had to actually look up the police report online later to discover this, because I was looking for a moment to prove that this wasn't all in vain, right? So a lot of fun.
Well, Phil, I have called a total of 0 times. And so it's good to know someone's at least looking out for their neighbors. That's at least a huge positive.
Well, how about this? If you ever text me 911, I'm not going to call you. I'm going to call 911 since I know how to do it, and I'll merge you in.
Thank you.
Kind of take you through it. How about that?
I love it, buddy.
Yeah.
We're all safer because of Phil Murray, everybody.
Let's be honest. Life's messy. Decisions are complex. And it's not all black and white. But these are the decisions that shape our growth. Welcome to The Tension. Let's get into it.
All right. Welcome to the Tension Podcast. Today we have Phil Murray. He's been a friend of mine for a long time, but today we're talking about the tension of founder energy, which is going to be pretty fun because I'm on one side, Phil's on the other, and I think we're just going to have a lot of fun here today. Phil Murray, those of you that don't know him, he is in a role of president of Marbella Interests, where they have a lot of operating companies. And why is Phil on to talk about founder energy? Something many probably don't know, Phil, is that you have worked for 9 founders, huh?
That's right. Just by accident, fell into roles where I was reporting directly into the founder CEO, every role since college. It's really been amazing. Been a lot of fun.
Well, that also means that you know what you're talking about on this subject. So, Phil, before we get into it, because I'm really excited, because talk about attention to manage, and those anyone out there that's either working directly for a founder in a founder-led company, gosh, I think this is going to be a lot of gold for you, and frankly for me. I can't wait to take notes. But Phil, maybe a little background. What makes Phil? A little personal, a little professional.
Sure. Well, grew up primarily in North Carolina. And went to school at UNC Charlotte, initially a computer science degree, but then flipped into business because I decided I wanted to impact, businesses more broadly, and just didn't think writing in a corner writing code all day, would be any fun. So did that, got out, landed in a construction company of all things, knew nothing about that industry. Again, founder led, was there for about 9 years. Just crazy fast growth early in my career. rose to become CFO just before my 30th birthday. We were growing the business, acquiring a variety of subsidiaries. Ultimately, though, moved to Texas after marrying my wife, who's from Texas, and that's what happens when you marry a girl from Texas.
Of course.
And landed into some roles here, again, primarily in financial and operational leadership roles. And most of the businesses I've been in have been very people intensive. So everything from tutoring business to fitness to even spa and day spa, and now my new role overseeing a variety of businesses that are also a lot of people, service businesses. So there's a little bit professionally, and then my wife and kids and I live here in Central Austin. We've got 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl, and my wife works as an oncologist here in town. And so she's the smart one, and she just lets me, hang out.
Yeah. Knowing what you do, I don't know that I would say you just hang out, but yes. And by the way, his wife, if you've been watching the podcast, I've mentioned my wife's cancer a few different times. She was instrumental in helping us, even just emotionally and with her skill set. And another fun fact, I have gone trick-or-treating more with Phil and his family than I have with probably, I think, even my own family when I was growing up. And so we've got some fun overlap. We go to the same church. It's amazing to live life next to Phil, and we're actually both part of C12. So we kind of know each other's business interests, all the good, bad, and ugly, and get to discuss those things multiple times a month, which is amazing. But Phil, the tension, right? Tension is not something that will ever be solved, right? It's not a problem, but something to be managed. We all know the quote, but specifically this tension of founder energy. So now, given you've worked for so many different founders, you not only know a lot about this, but maybe if I'm a listener out there, I'm like, what is founder energy? Maybe you can even explain that. And then secondarily, like, what is this tension?
Sure. Well, I'll do my best to define founder energy. And Travis, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that too, as a founder. Founder energy to me is just this idea that, a founder founds a business, start a business because they have something they're trying to do in the world. There's a product or a service or a new spin on something, or maybe something entirely new, it's never been done before, that they want to see brought to life. They want to bring to market. And the energy it takes, physical energy, the time, but the emotional energy, the mental energy it takes to do that is significant, right? Typically have a lot of people that are naysaying, don't think the idea will work. You've got your own internal demons, your own internal battles and thoughts about it. You're potentially putting a lot of stuff on credit cards and, mortgaging your home. I mean, there's all kinds of things people do. And so it's that energy. I mean, there's a lot has been written about that 0 to 1, right? It's the energy that it takes to get things going. And the people that come along later in the founder's journey don't always appreciate that. But that's how I would define it. How would you define it?
It's really good, Phil. Yeah, I mean, I think to me, it's you have some level of vision. To your point, this could be a new product line. It could be something in the industry, something that's never done before, and all you can think about is that thing coming to life, and you see almost the version of reality of when it is brought to life, and how much better that will be for society or business or whatever it is for. And all of that energy to me is kind of what you said. It takes all aspects of oneself to just put everything you have into that, to see that actually then be founded into something that has that effect. So I thought you said that really beautifully. But yes, me being on the founder side, you working with them, what an interesting kind of like spotlight into 2 different ways of thinking. So you were able to just say that really well. I think it's interesting for founders. I think founders, the problem with them most of the time, especially with the energy, is they're so sensitive because they don't feel like people understand what they've been through or don't understand the energy, that they typically have a hard time then actually talking about it / hiring people like you that can then take that and make it so much more beautiful than maybe the 0 to 1 that it took for their energy. But now you're like 1 to 100. And so, there is that tension there that sure, you need it just like every business needs a founder energy in the beginning. So talk to me about why is it a tension? Why is this something you and I want to spend the next few minutes talking about?
Yeah, I think it's a tension because most successful businesses eventually want to and need to scale, right? I mean, I'm a big believer, and this is, I think you can apply this to our personal life too, right? We're either growing or we're shrinking, right? You can't just kind of hang out and stagnate. And so when scaling becomes kind of a question or an issue, well, you're looking around at your early team, the people I would call your early believers, and very often some of them are scaling with you and doing great. And sometimes you just don't have all the right talent, all the right people on the bus, so to speak. And you need maybe your first true marketing professional or financial professional. That's a common outside hire, right? You may not have grown up the business with 25-year-olds that were kind of ready to run the finances for a $100 million business, for example.
Right.
And so that's I think why the tension exists, because then as those people start coming in and as the business starts maturing, you have to be really careful. And one of my things is you have to be really careful not to try to just jerk this business into the future or what this new person might perceive as the mandate. No, it's really about coming alongside the founder and learning their story, listening, understanding what's important to them, and then help kind of move the business into the future without squashing the vision, but really by enabling it.
Yeah. So let's talk about this for a second. Because, Phil, in your experience, I'm going to go even more depth in a second, but I really want to unpack this tension. Like, when is it that time where the founder energy in some ways on its own with I like what you said, kind of the first believers folks, like, when do you typically, I know you've seen so many different industries, so maybe a little bit hard to answer, but like, when does it stop being effective? Because I know I felt it. You've seen this in my life. There's a point where that'll play, if you will. We're going to will ourselves there in a big vision speech and inspiration, and we can do anything. It hits a point where it stops being what you want it to be, unless you just, to your point, want to stop scaling. Like, can you explain that moment as you've seen it?
Yeah, I think maybe one way to answer that would just be to say when your actions can no longer match with your words. So in the early years, the momentum, the hype, and it's real hype. It's like, we're going to go do this, and just through force of will, you and a small group of other people go do this thing with you leading the way. But at some point in time, you find you're not able to deliver on the promises, because what actually becomes the obstacle is the ability to execute, and you run up against nascent systems and fragile processes and maybe inexperienced people and difficult situations you haven't faced before and your team has never faced before. And then it's like, oh shoot, I'm doing my best here, but clearly I need a little more help, because now the people that were so excited to come along with me now are kind of getting discouraged and not feeling good about their work, and I'm feeling like I'm letting them down. And so we all collectively need some help here.
Dude, that's really good. I have not heard that, but I love that, because frankly, I have personally experienced it. It's whenever it's almost like you were the promise maker and the promise keeper as the founder for so many years, and then all of a sudden, to your point, you're the promise maker, and you look around, and not only can you not keep those promises because it's too big for one person or a small group to do, but now you've hit that level where, like, you can't just say these things and then they happen. Where I think in the beginning years or months or whatever it is for your business, right? It actually does, right? Which I think is a pretty jarring experience. And you're right, discouragement comes in. I'd say for me, a lot of insecurity of like, boy, is it even going to be something? Did we hit our peak? All that type of stuff. So okay, you get to that point, and I think Predictable Success, right? That book is a really, really good one for almost this guide of like, everyone's going to get there. They call it white water. Anyone could call it something else. But like, you get to that point where you realize you can't do it with just your OGs, so to speak, and your visionary, let's go get it self. But it's a tension, because what we're saying today, and I think what you've even said to me, is like, the answer is not then to just say, great, hire from the outside, squash the founder energy, because it's actually disturbing things, hurting things, right? Versus helping. And yet it can't be the same. Like, what's going on there, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, when you start to move into that step where you're now bringing new people in, I think it's normal for people to think in big steps, because in our example here, what we're talking about is you've hit a moment kind of crisis, or maybe the business is going well, but now you're not able to deliver for your customers, and so your employees are frustrated, and so it's kind of a moment of crisis, and so it feels like there needs to be a big change, right? Okay, now we gotta find the big dogs that have done this at scale. We've got to implement a ERP system. I know of, as a sidebar, I know of a food trailer in Austin. It's a brand that you would know years ago. It was building up, had a couple locations. And what I heard is that they went bankrupt because the owner got obsessed with writing his own accounting and ERP system for this food trailer. And I'm like, really? Toast. There's like, talk about getting, sidelined. And he thought he needed to go all big and do something big. And the truth is the answer is usually in the incremental change and incremental improvement.
So good, dude.
And so the only way to really make incremental improvements is for someone with a little more experience to come in, but to recognize it's an incremental step they need to take. And it's not some drastic shift. They think oftentimes someone coming in from the outside thinks the founders hire them to come do what they do. I mean, they saw my resume, I've been at Dell or been at whatever. Google, I can come and do this here. But really the founder, whether they realize or not, the founders actually brought them in to help enable their vision. And the only way to connect the dots between the founder's vision and their experience is to do a lot of listening, it requires a lot of curiosity. I mean, I grew up still not a great listener. I've always been extremely curious. I mean, the dad that lived a few houses away as a child had to complain to his wife, complain to my mom that I was asking him how much their truck cost and all these personal questions.
I can see little Phil doing that, by the way.
Yeah, but I was always asking questions. And so one thing that really benefited me early in my career is just, wow, okay, tell me more. What did you do in the early days? And why is this so important to you? Why do you care? And so I just always wanted to know it all, wanted to know the history, all the why. And so I think it's kept me from errors. And I think leaders that come in just a posture of curiosity are much more successful. I've heard Eric Schmidt say he did that at Google. I've heard Sheryl Sandberg talk about that at Facebook. And then there's honestly far more examples of big company people coming into small companies and screwing it up than there are successes. I just think there's a lot of landmines there.
Well, it's so funny on my perspective, right? The founder, I'm going to speak founder like it's everybody, but this is just maybe me. I don't know. But the level of insecurity that a founder can feel, I know I did when I hired someone from the big company that's been the gift of my business life, frankly. But when I did that, the insecurity was exactly that. Like if there wasn't, and I was blessed with this amazing, president to come in and have the curiosity. But I've also seen in different roles, and I've seen with different friends, companies, and different things like that, when curiosity is lacking, you almost fan the insecurity flame that was so hard for the founder to get over to even hire people in the first place. Because they're like, I can't believe I'm having to admit I need this help. And what if after all of this, I give to someone else that wasn't here for all of the pain and they just screwed up? Like have you seen that? I mean, is that just me?
No, it's not just you. And the other, that's really vulnerable for you to say, it's an insecurity of yours. And I think that's probably true in many cases. And the complexity there is, and in your case, I think you made a great hire, things are going well, right? But let's say you've not made a great hire and you're afraid, you're a little afraid to question. You see some things they're doing like, well, maybe that's just a big company thing that will work here once they get it implemented.
Yeah, because you don't know as a founder, you have no idea. You're like, the whole reason I'm hiring you is because I don't even know what you do at this level.
Yeah, so you're kind of fearfully stepping to the future. And if that person isn't bringing you along the way, because, your education of that new person has to be obviously in batches and a lot of conversations up front, but it's also going to happen along the journey when they want to do something and you're not so sure. And it requires a lot of vulnerability on their part also, right? To drop their guard, drop their pitch deck for a second and say, hey, Travis, tell me what's going on here. I want to keep working through this. I sense there's some concerns or fears. Let's talk that through because maybe I've addressed it and what's to come, or maybe I haven't. And I just need to hear this from you right now. And so it's more than anything, it feels like a relationship skill is kind of what I've.
Dude, that's a gold mine. Keep going. Yes. What do you mean?
I mean, it's a relationship skill. It's well, okay. I'll give you an example in the environment I've been in just recently until this new role. I came in as CEO for a consumer wellness brand. A founder was still involved in the business, majority owner of the business, and came in as initially a CFO and then moved into the CEO role. And the way that happened is she saw me come in and do good work in a difficult time for the business. But it
Yeah.
also came through a lot of conversations about what she cared about. And I had to, there were many moments where I'm like, why do you care about this? Because I don't understand. I'm not sure if I should care about it also, or if
Yeah.
I should
I'm not connecting
choose
the
not to
dots.
care about it, but we've got to talk about it. So it just required talking, and me not feeling like I have to prove myself, her not feeling too, nervous to speak up, and just had to be lots of dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and to give you perspective again, on my side, just because I've had this experience where someone's done that really well, it's interesting because I think that back to the whole kind of insecurity, all those types of things, is I think most founders, in some ways, they know how it got where it was, but
Mm,
they don't actually know at this level of company, or they wouldn't have hired someone to come in, right, to deal with founder energy, to take it to scale. Like, at
mm,
least I can speak for me. I didn't actually know until thoughtful questions were provoked to me
mm,
what I believed anymore.
mhm.
And so it was really intriguing for me because I'd get these questions and I'd have to, at the beginning, the first few months, back to your vulnerability, I thought that was so right. I'd like try to answer them, well, this is why I'm real aggressive. And
Mm,
like, I know, because remember, I hired you and I'm the founder, CEO guy, whatever. But it was interesting as the questions kept coming, because then what I found
mm,
myself is as they kept coming, I got even more open to saying, I don't know why I care. And
yeah.
then a year later, I was able to say, I think I care because it's something that still makes me feel like I'm relevant. Maybe not that it's better for the
Ah.
business, right?
No, sorry, go ahead.
No, so I was just saying, like, how good what you're saying. And again, if all people get from this podcast is like just an honest conversation between the two sides, I don't think there's enough out there, which is why I can't wait to read your book, because I know you're going to
Mm,
write a book about this subject. So I'll be first in line to read all of that. But like, yeah, Phil, I don't know. Yeah, if you ever felt that from your founders, that as the months drew on, they were able to then almost articulate their vision better at that scale. They used to be able to do it on the
mhm,
fly, give them a microphone, go to work. I used to be able
mhm.
to. And then all of a sudden, you don't really know, because back to what you said, you can't grab the mic anymore because you don't know if that will happen. Whereas when
Yeah,
it used to happen all the time, give me a mic.
yeah. Well, and I think sometimes that vision is put out there and you accomplish it rapidly. You're like, well, what's
Mm,
next? Sometimes
mm,
maybe the vision was so big and then kind of life happens, the complexities we were talking about, scaling happens. You're like, well, do we keep saying that? Is this something
mm.
new? And I
Yeah.
do think vulnerability, we've already talked a lot about. I mean, I share with my team, I think it's an executive skill that has to be
Come
cultivated. It's
on.
the only way we learn. There was something I want to say on that. Travis, bring me back here.
I was just telling you that as the months went on, I felt like I'd be more
Oh,
open.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. So one thing that I found, I think the average person thinks that when they think of a visionary founder, they think of Steve Jobs or Elon Musk or
Yeah.
founder of Travis Kalanick, founder of Uber, or the founder of WeWork, and where they have
Yeah.
these kind of vast vision statements. They want to raise the consciousness of the universe. These broad statements, and I think maybe the stereotype in our culture, the assumption in our culture, is that that's what a founder is with this big vision. But I
Mm.
have found in almost every case, I mean, I had one founder that he was just obsessed with getting kids to read. It was an edutech company, really interesting,
Wow.
right? And he was just very clear. He was so single-minded in that he almost did nothing else in life, right? Didn't even own a car. But for the most part, founders, I've discovered founders are kind of figuring it out a little bit as they go. They had initial
No
seed of
doubt.
an idea. And just recently I talked to a founder that was involved in multiple businesses, and I asked them about their vision for a couple of them. They said, I'm not sure. I'm asking my senior teams to work on that and bring some
Mm.
things to me. And so I think it feeds into this culture sometimes of founder worship, and like the founder's got all the answers, and
Yeah.
it's all about them. People will do that around founders in a way that makes founders uncomfortable. Like, wait, no,
Yes.
it
Oh
actually
my
isn't all
goodness.
about me. How did this happen, right?
Yeah.
So it requires, I think, a lot of discussions, and I think a talented team of leaders around an energetic founder can help draw out the things the founder cares about, and can also accentuate and help
Yeah.
shape that strategy even themselves.
Yeah, dude, and it's so interesting. Not to go completely on a faith tangent here, but I could say as a
Yeah.
founder, as a believer in Jesus, I have a certain set of things I know I am and the things I need to be really weary about. Just because my identity is found in that. And I've got, this Bible that I'm able to read and kind of get this playbook, if you will. But it's interesting. Something you just said, I don't think I fully recognized, which was I did wake up one day and it really was this, you are this company and this company is you. And that's at least the way it was being treated to me. And then I had to go through a whole different exercise of, did I create that because actually I was kidding myself and then my identity has been so in all of this business that it's actually just true and it was self-making because that's just the truth. Did I not create a feedback loop environment for people to actually feel like they could bring up things to challenge it? Did I not give people enough autonomy and ownership and responsibility to be able to set the stage in different areas? And it was just this really interesting. I'm not saying I'll ever be over it. I think if you are so connected to a company, it should always be this like be weary type thing. At least that's the way I feel about myself and my own heart and my prone to wonderness, if that's a word. But I just, I don't know, man. Like, and I do want to get to like your background a little bit more of just, our typical, like, when's the first time you saw it and how are you managing it, all those things here in a second. But kind of last thing there is like, as that founder is going through what you can tell their own growth cycles, right? Their own trying to figure out how it got to where it is, whether to your point, it was their doing and they just woke up because that's what you do around founders that have this energy that's very attractive for people or not. Like, what do you do or what have you done to help them on that pretty like back to insecurity? That was the most insecure I've ever felt as a founder because I don't want that to be me. And the fact that that's what was being said crushed me because I thought I worked so hard for it not to be. Like, how do you deal with the founders that have those big existential kind of like moments?
Yeah, no, it's man, it's so interesting also to just be talking to you as a founder, right, about all this, because typically I'm talking to people that don't know as much about founder world, and so you've experienced this completely. One of the interesting things, I think the way I'd answer that, Travis, is when I come into a business, if you have, let's say you've had a strong founder, meaning that they don't have maybe, key leaders. And I've often been kind of the first external, what I would say key leader hire, right?
Okay.
So you come in and the people around the founder they're looking to the founder because it was the founder's vision. The founder, probably just older, more experienced than them. They've had no one else to look to.
Yeah.
And you come in and I think it's somewhat a respect thing. Like, okay, you all respect the founder and that's important. I respect the founder, but the way their respect manifests isn't going to scale. Like, they might respect you in a way of like, wow, Travis is amazing. But my goal is to respect you. Sure, you're amazing. You brought some talented people together, built an amazing brand, built some great customer loyalty. But my job is to respect you and your vision enough that I'm willing to challenge you on some things.
Yeah.
And to your point, draw out what's important to you and figure out what isn't. When in my most recent role, again, it's interesting that the founder, probably 20% of the time after I was CEO, 20% of the time she just would disagree with me on things. Now, she didn't always know when she disagreed because I didn't tell her everything. No need to tell her everything.
Sure.
Probably 80% of the time she, felt like I did as good or better than she would have. And when people don't feel, so you talk about your own insecurity, when employees kind of get insecure, and back to this kind of founder worship piece, if they're not comfortable and they don't feel like they can relax and they can appropriately challenge or bring alternative ideas or whatever to the table, may have nothing to do with you. Like, you may be the kindest, least intimidating person, but they just don't want to upset you, right? They want to be in your places. Then you just never hear everything that you might be able to. I even experienced this a little as CEO, right? Is that I don't always get feedback because
the title.
It's the title, and that's a little scary for me, right? It should be scary for every founder. And so I think it's finding ways to give them thoughtful feedback. Every founder has been either my age or older. So it's probably about to flip as I age. And so there's always just kind of been this positional thing. Like, in most cases, they've got more life experience than me. Who am I to come in and say, hey, young buck, let me show you how it works.
Yeah.
So you just can't force your will onto them. You really have to internalize. I mean, I've been saying this. You have to internalize their story.
Dude, that is so good.
Yeah.
Internal, because I think I'm sitting here listening. I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, because if that happens, I mean, the whole reason why that person's there is you want them to take the whole thing and run,
Yeah.
but they have to understand you, or you feel like they're just taking the thing and running their direction. And you're like, oh, why did I do this?
Yeah.
Like.
Well, and in your case, and obviously you've had some ups and downs in your business, and so imagine hiring someone today and say, oh, you're a great, give me a function, Travis. You're a great IT person or IT leader. I don't know. And they knew nothing about the hard moments in your business, some of which have been fairly recent, right? Just imagine how weird that would be. Well, one way, by the way, to kind of internalize this is as you're going along the way. So we talked about there's batches of education and communication, and then it's kind of along the way. Along the journey, if you explain, so a new leader coming in, if they will explain their goals to the founder as they walk in through the business together and through months and years, and then pull out the founder's insights and concerns along the way. If they see, if the founder sees you taking their concerns into account and tweaking, it might be a small concern, it might be a really big concern, but they see you taking those things into account, not just dismissing them and saying, okay, I'm going to ignore that comment, but say, no, tell me more. Okay, why is this concern? And then next time you meet, they see you've reflected or folded in that concern into the plan. That builds a lot of trust. Like, okay, not only does this person get my story, get my stuff, but they're actually reacting to it appropriately. They're not just playing a yes man, yes woman, but they are hearing me and they're integrating it into their approach. I mean, I think that's another way.
Well, because I could tell you, man, the death knell. If you have a quick way to not want to work with the founder, well, it's what you're saying so beautifully, like to do that, but the opposite. Oh man, when you feel like you finally gave like a bunch of thoughts of like, hey, let's really work together on this. I'll give you my thoughts, but you go run with it, and then it's never mentioned again. It was as if you never, as the founder, even gave an opinion, and it wasn't brought back up. It wasn't inserted anywhere. It wasn't even like hey, you said this, and here's why we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Oh man, do you feel like someone else is steering, your ship in some way still, and you get extra like, and then you start, at least my case, you start overreacting in ways you never wanted to because you're like, I've lost trust here.
Right.
So I need to be more involved in this meeting, or I should go into this meeting or on that call, or next time I see that email, I'm going to read a little closer and ask questions, or all the probably destructive things I think a founder could do when they're actually trying to give responsibility over.
Well, there's a great book called The First 90 Days by Michael Watkins, and it's like a classic text of executives moving in new roles. Now, he doesn't really say he talks about matching strategy situation. He doesn't say a lot about moving in entrepreneurial businesses and doesn't speak on this topic. But he does talk about some early conversations to have. And one of those early conversations is kind of the decision rights conversation. And what I would say is you can't do that in one conversation. You can't do it in one conversation because the founder isn't always going to know what they care about until you get to the topic.
Preach, and I will say amen.
Yeah, you can't know. And that's why this is not, okay, we spent half a day together. Oh, we spent 2 hours a day for, every Monday for 3 months. So now I got it. No, you're not trying to take the founder out of the founder. You're not trying to sideline them. You're trying to inculcate enough of the story and the reason, and the why, and all those things in yourself so that you reduce, how far plus or minus you are as you execute. But there's going to have to be continued involvement for a while. I mean, this is why I think at some point, founders, it's not uncommon for founders to come back because they realize the inculcation process, the process of passing on their vision was not either done thoroughly or the subsequent leaders drifted, right? You have to bring Howard Schultz the second time back to Starbucks and a third time. Steve Jobs back, bring even Tyler Haney now involved back at Outdoor Voices, right? So this is not, this is universal in the high profile businesses. But what I found working in lower profile, lower middle market businesses it works the same everywhere because people are the same, right?
So interesting.
I'm over here preaching. I'll kind of shut up here for a second.
No, I'm having a hard time wanting to go to our normal framework here because this is a gold mine. I'm just going to keep talking with you, even though I really do want to go to some questions I had. But let me just say something about that, because I do think, again, to highlight Luke, who is the person working with the Founder Energy, right? So well in my circumstance. But like one of my favorite things that's said, Phil, my guess is you, it sounds like you probably do this a lot too, is let's talk about this. And then the comment right after that being, and remember, even if we have changes in ideas and we learn more and all that, you're just telling me what you know and believe today. And I'm like, oh, because at least for me, I don't know if this has happened for you. You get to a point where as a founder, and I think you said it really well, you're given all this direction and it's working, right? And then to your point, it stops really working. And you actually see negative consequences coming. You start to be misunderstood by employees or clients or whatever it is. And you're like, wait, I used to be here and now I'm in this place. And all of a sudden you're almost in this spot where like, you want to make sure what you say is like really dialed in. So then you go to that, at least I did. You go all the way over to, okay, when I talk, like forget vision and inspiration, doggone it. I'm going to be so accurate because I've seen the pain that comes from, I'm not in that phase anymore where everything I say just happens like it used to. And what's interesting for me is what I found is, but then you lose the whole energy because that's what you're never built to be, is that precisely accurate. And then one day you wake up and you're like, there's no innovation in this company. I don't like my own company. In fact, for me, you get to a place of resentment for your own company that you built, which is really weird. And then you like, wait, I need to start just telling people what I think. And then maybe at the end saying, but I can't promise it's all going to happen. And that's why y'all are here to tell me what works, what doesn't work. But I can't keep shutting myself up. But then no one ever asked the founder to shut up. But at least that was my journey. Have you seen that before?
Yes. Oh man. Yes. This is also nearly universal, where a successful founder business is growing and it's being institutionalized. It's being professionalized. Even if you have some real thoughtful leaders, right, that are coming alongside the founder, doing all the things we're talking about, getting the vision, taking the company forward, they're still primarily thinking about scaling, and they're probably not thinking about, innovation and new ideas. And if anything, new ideas, if we're not careful as leaders working for founders, if we're not careful, new ideas can seem like enemies. They can seem like bad guys and distractions. Like, oh my gosh, we just build out the strategic plan for the year, and 3 weeks later, there's
some new idea. Yeah. Boo! That guy stinks. Yeah.
And so I would say I don't know that I've got this figured out, other than just to expect it. And so I think you've got to build some wiggle room, some tolerance for opportunistic investments and energy into your system, into your strategic plan. Because if you stop changing, right back to our premise earlier, you stop changing, stop growing, stop innovating, then the business is going to one day struggle because it didn't do something it should have 3 years, 5 years earlier, right? So that's important. I would put that back in your court. Have you figured out how to kind of keep the innovation going?
No, I feel like I'm a dog on seesaw, where I either put myself in a place where I muzzle myself because I get that feedback from, often it's not the people I interact with the most, it's the people below them that I hear murmurings from, either them directly or through the people I'm, hiring to scale. And you get like so tired of hearing that every time you have an innovative thought, it's so negative that you're like, okay, I'm not going to talk anymore. It's very clear I'm the problem, little T Swift song. And I'm like, I accept that. And all I ever wanted to do was scale this vision without me having to be everything, because I can't do that anymore. And I don't really want it anymore. And then I've seesaw right back over, because then I get myself so frustrated because I see it and I'm like, I look at my notes app and I got 50 things that I'd like to share. And I realize I haven't shared any of them because I'm scared to death of hearing yet again, new idea. Here we go. We'll never actually scale. He's not going to let us do that. So I have actually not, Phil, sitting here in 2026. I think I've only ever dramatically responded in one way or the other for a season.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I even this podcast, that's why I couldn't wait to do this with you. I'm sitting here like, dude, I got to do better. I got to find some happy medium.
Yeah. Well, man, and now you've given me a new kind of thing to ponder on. I'm just thinking, what would be helpful to me in that situation? Let's say I'm the guy sitting down with you and you're talking about these new ideas, and man, I had a mostly full agenda to talk to you about in our hour time together, and you get these new things. I'm just thinking out loud here. I think it would be helpful to, just here's an idea. Maybe the comment for the founder to make is, hey, Phil, hey, Sally, hey, Jessica, my idea generator is not slowing down. In fact, the more you are running the day to day, it's actually accelerating.
Which is a funny thing that happens.
Right? I'm sure. And so how do we, maybe the question is, hey, Jessica, how do we create some space for me to go through some of those things with you in a way that doesn't feel distracting and to our agenda and to the core plan, which we need to go do. But like, right. I really need someone here in the business that I trust and know to work through these things, talk about the whys behind them. And you may help me scratch some off the list. You may see some bigger opportunity than I do in some of them. You may see some synergies with existing core business or products and some of these ideas. But I really need a way to share those and not just feel like I'm being pesky. And it's almost like asking for permission and letting them know, like, hey, this is a way they can serve you as a founder. By the way, this might be a new business we're creating together.
Right.
You never know.
Totally.
I don't know. Just an idea.
No, dude, I think it's wonderful. And yeah, I know we've only got 10 minutes here. We could totally do an hour on just that. Because it is a hard one, man. I think it's a really hard one. And I do think that if a founder can get to their most healthy self, I think the best version I can say is when you can start to X things out before you have to bring them to anyone, because you developed enough maturity and understanding your business that isn't just about another idea and someone else Xing it for you. Because that's also just like a founder needs to learn to grow up. I think at least I've seen from friends that are founders, there's so much grace given. There's so, to your point, whatever you want to insert for that founder level. But like the founder also does need to grow up, and they need to be able to do some of that work. And then to your point, they need to learn not just to say, okay, everyone's job is to learn how to interact with me. They have to flip that too. It's a two-way street. How do you want to be interacted with? And I'm just going to go back to a comment that you made before, which was so gold. The best days, again, even this topic of oscillating between the two, there's been amazing days in the middle of all of that too. But those amazing days were only vulnerable, those type of dialogues you just said. Because when that's happening, good things seem to exist from it, Right. And so even you were saying like being vulnerable, I think a shout out to the founders out there. They got to be the same way. They got to be willing to do that too.
For sure. I mean, even scale companies, some of the largest companies in the world right now are technology businesses. They're innovation engines. And so, and I don't believe, and I'm sure you don't believe that only founders can come up with new good ideas.
Yes.
But it is a strength of theirs. And so if you're not willing to let the founder share some of their ideas and you don't have other, pockets of innovation in the business, well, then what are you doing? What are you doing long term?
Well, no, here's what I want to ask you. I'm glad you went there because, again, I could give you where, the good days, bad days, more on this topic. But I want to stay on the tension of founder energy. So at more scale, Phil, and you've gotten to see when founder energy is misplaced and it is the more aggressive seesaw type things. And I think I love what you said. Pretty much it's process. And if it's not this subject, it'll be a different subject. Founders then come back into business like, it's a tension. There's always going to be something you're trying to manage through. What is your most healthy job description of a founder when they're finally at some form of predictable success scale with a wonderful person running the business, maybe more of the operating mind, and their team below them actually functioning with like love ideas, but also we need to do the plan. It's not just that Phil version. It's all the other people too. So you're in this beautiful state. Right? That I bet a lot of businesses have never been in. What is the founder's job? What is their energy that is still needed? Can you? You have a
Yeah.
guess on it?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna answer this in the context of a founder that 100% owner of the business, or they own the majority of the business. There's no kind of governance
I
disconnect.
see.
I think they can
That makes sense.
ultimately,
Yeah.
it might tweak a little bit depending, but I would say the founder job description, I think, is to fully align with the senior team. So this is whether the founder is CEO or whether the founder is kind of step back in a, chairman or passive role and has their own CEO. But either way, I think they need to be fully aligned with the executive team on the strategic plan. It can't be, and I've seen some disconnects in this category. It can't be the executive team's plan, but the founder's just thinking other things are important and won't speak up, or they're working on other projects but won't mention them. If they have to really be fully aligned with that plan, and they need to use some energy up front in that year or that quarterly, whatever your strategic review cycle is, to make sure they understand why the team thinks that's important, and to make sure they can challenge anything that you think are blind spots in the team, right? And they're missing, or they're drifting from the core mission in some way, or they're forgetting some of the lessons you learned earlier in the business, right? You're educating them actively. We're fully aligned on that plan. Once that happens, then I think it comes into like, well, what projects do you want my involvement in, right? I don't, if the founder is a CEO, the same as really as a hired CEO, I found, I don't know about you, I found I couldn't really run projects anymore. People didn't want me to. And so,
I think it also, not only is that true, I think it hurts any of them. I like the comment you said before of ideating in their own right.
yeah,
Or having any level of like, it's our company. Because if you start getting in the projects, at least what I found, unless it's like true like product, right? Like, so Zuckerberg will still go down with an engineer is the story, right?
Yeah.
And talk specifically about one of their products. Okay, but that's like your product. That's the thing that's actually a part that he actually knows maybe still better than anyone, which is great. But the actual everyday products, yeah, keep going. But I have found that it hurts more than helps, even if a founder could have helped or a CEO could have helped.
Yeah. Unless I think there's that permission or understanding up front. I mean, founded the business I just left, she got really passionate about like the design of the t-shirts that employees were wearing.
Yeah.
She didn't think that was the most important thing in the whole business, but she just cared about it more than anyone else. And when it came time to do some new design work and manifestations of our brand and logo, there was a collection of things she just wanted to be involved in that included t-shirt design.
Yeah.
And that was fine. And so, again, first part, make sure you're fully aligned and agreed with the strategic plan. Put a lot of effort, energy, arguing it out, whatever you have to do to get aligned. 2, figure out what projects your team wants you on, because you might find they actually do want you on some projects. And, together with that, if there's some you want to be on, raise your hand there. And then I think it's, if there's something here in the external facing, I will say, I have never worked with leaders that were strange, weirdly jealous or anything, like, gosh, why is the founder getting the credit? They're not working that hard anymore. They're going and speaking at conferences, they're going to podcasts. I think everybody understands that personality will always do it better than they will. And that all the ships in the company rise because the leader's doing that. And so I think most founders either grow into that. And the one I'm going to work for now, I would say he's grown into that over time. I see where he realizes this public facing role is going to be his. It's super important that he do that in certain situations. And I think that's probably important in your organization as well. And so those are a few things. I mean, I like this idea of preserving some energy for innovation, right? These ideas, and carving out some time or space, or maybe it's a monthly meeting, right? Where you spend a little time curating some of your ideas and you bring it to a subset of the executive team. It's a challenge though. And for all those things in common, I think each founder is going to have their own little areas that maybe they want to spend more time on than others. And it's an interesting puzzle, to be sure. And I think it's one of the important things though for the executive team to figure out, because they need to be able to operate without worrying about the founder coming in and inserting themselves randomly into things. Once you're scaled, you've got a real leadership team, right? So
yeah. Oh, it's so good. Well, and you keep saying, you say challenges there a few times, and I do want to end with one more question, but I do think it's just important to note, even just having this quick dialogue, This is not just for, I hope this is not just for founders and hired CEOs, presidents, whatever it may be. But I mean, I think a lot of people really do enjoy working for at least what they started, if it's not currently a founder-led company or whatever it may be. But there's just a lot of passion. There's a lot of mission. There's a lot of, you get that versus, the big company. And there's a lot of reasons why the big company may be a better fit for someone too. But you get that passion, you get the mission, you get all those things. But these are the universal things that it's just good for everyone to know is going on. I mean, I love that you said even at the $1 trillion valuation type companies, still going on, right? Still happening, and still no one, the smartest minds in business, have solved them because it's not a problem to solve. It's a continual kind of, what do you do with that founder energy? And there's so many opinions and different viewpoints in one single company on it. But Phil, this has been so good. Again, everyone listening, this is just a quick blip of a bunch of gold from Phil. And when he releases a book on this, I think it's just going to be amazing for so many of us that are trying to figure that out. I know for me, even Phil, you've challenged me to learn and kind of self-reflect and all the things in our time today. But last question we always want to ask as we're finishing up here, the tension of founder energy. What would be your last, hey, if you are trying to figure this out, here is my call to action for you. What would it be, Phil?
Yeah. I mean, I think listening is the way in, right? If you're coming, especially if you're coming from a corporate environment, it might be weird to go on this listening tour, to spend so much time on the front end because you've kind of just operated in a way you're used to, but there's no way around that. There's no way around that. You have to internalize, as you listen, you have to internalize the founder's story. Can't emphasize that enough. It's going to happen. It should happen in some big batches, but also along the way, right? Explain what you're thinking. Draw out their insights, their concerns, show them that you can, implement their concerns, questions along the way. It's going to give them a lot of relief and build, a pathway of trust that's going to lead to, I think, a lot of good things.
Come on, man. Well, everybody, I think we can all thank you, Phil, for your wisdom. I appreciate just your friendship to my family. And man, thank you. This was gold. Appreciate all of that. And whenever we figure out when the book is out, Phil, we're getting out to everybody out there. So Phil, thanks for being on the podcast.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been great.